Welcome, ethically questionable viewers, to the show where we won't answer your burning questions, like, if France is so proud of champagne that they will get mad at you if you call it sparkling wine, then why did Napoleon Bonaparte, the only Frenchman that mattered, according to history, only like red burgundy? Welcome to Cartoon Gateway, the show where I talk about the average trials and tribulations of a cartoon fan. I'm your host, David Hollander. Now, you've seen this title. Should I have made this episode in February? No, because I was fairly occupied with a little thing called higher education. But what am I talking about? I haven't even introduced the theme of the episode. Well, it's in the title. If you managed to tune into this episode without actually seeing the title, I envy you, good blind sir, madam, other, or daredevil. We're talking romance, which is to say, how it's portrayed in cartoons and similar mediums. One might say I'm kicking a wasp nest, and I don't have the foggiest idea why you'd say that. Wasps don't care about our fictitious dating habits, and we don't care about their dating habits at all. You don't need me to tell you that lots of cartoons feature romance, usually as a subplot or vestigial element. It's weird. Romance is everywhere in cartoons, but you'd be hard-pressed to find a dedicated romance cartoon. And frankly, that's what we're talking about today. Sure, with movies, that's easy to find. Not so with cartoons or animated works. If I asked an American viewer to find a romance cartoon, they'd probably give me something indecent before they give me an actual romance cartoon. Part of that's likely because cartoons, though for all ages, are still broadly seen as kid stuff. Pushing romance on kids is generally frowned upon, especially when it contradicts the value of the state. Figure out which state I mean. If it's yours, run. But then, if that's really the case, why do action cartoons, comedies, and even horror shows often feature romance? That might seem like a weird question, but think about it. We have horror movies and horror cartoons, action movies, action cartoons, comedy movies, comedy cartoons. Every big genre seems to have a cartoon. So why is it that cartoons have no answer to romance movies? Well, the simple answer is probably just an American thing. After all, hopping over to Japan, there are tons of anime that would be considered romance shows first and foremost. Same in Latin American territories, though that's not really a cartoon thing, just TV shows in general. Not so in America. We've got dating shows, but those tend to be a subset of reality TV, not fictional romance stories, though they might as well be in some cases. I digress. So what to do when the genre is underrepresented by itself? Sandwich it into other things, like some chimera abomination. It's easy to do. Have two characters in your TV show or movie of the opposite gender, have them end up together regardless of how appropriate the pairing is, or even how much it flies in the face of common sense. And they say forcing romance is frowned upon. Writers tend to use that as a plot device. Want your characters to just be chronically bad at communicating? Simply make them act like a bad married couple. It's also remarkably easy to do when you're a writer. All you need is an I love you at some point, and most viewers will accept that. It requires basically no skill or extensive writing. Most viewers won't care. If it's not clear, I hate this mindset and those that perpetuate it. Wholeheartedly a me thing, but if you're gonna force romance into your stories and make me sit through it, I expect it to at least be well written. Don't torture me otherwise. Or at least do what Pen Zero Part-Time Hero did, just ignore any romantic plot until the literal end of the show. A tad backhanded, yes, but when am I gonna get the chance to talk about this wonderful show again? Until yesterday, I was convinced it was a hallucination. But back on topic. Romance tends to not hold up by itself in American TV shows or cartoons, and because of that, it tends to be the go-to side plot in TV or movies. But the point still stands, why is it everywhere? Even places where it's not appropriate or fitting. Saying it's an American thing doesn't quite work. After all, what if we treated another culture that way, you know? For the sake of example, what if you woke up one day and suddenly French films are all the rage? A bit weird, but you learn to live with it. Except for some reason, every French film in this world, this hypothetical world I've made, insists that the entire movie stop every 5 minutes to devolve into a yodeling competition. I don't know anyone who conflates yodeling with French culture. But when you ask people in this hypothetical world I've created why every movie does this, no matter the relevance, the only thing anyone says is, it's a French thing. I don't have the words to describe how insane I would feel if I were met with that world. And yet, here's American media putting romance everywhere, even where it doesn't belong. In fact, let me digress back towards animation specifically a bit to talk about one of the few movies I've seen which actually defies this, and I don't think anyone talks about it, at least for this reason. Kung Fu Panda, specifically with Po and Tigress. Bit out of left field, I know, stay with me on this. Tigress is the female lead of the franchise. The story is about Poe getting the opportunity to join what is effectively an entire new world, and Tigress doesn't think he has what it takes at first, but over time, Poe proves himself, Tigress gets to taste a humble pie, and grows to respect him over the course of the film, something which becomes more apparent as the franchise continues. And at no point does Tigress ever become Poe's love interest. In the films themselves, Tigress is wholeheartedly a solo act. Why act like Kung Fu Panda was under any obligation to make the relationship between male and female leads romantic? Come here, come here, come here. Because that's exactly what How to Train Your Dragon did. You know, with Hiccup and Astrid. These movies were made by the same company, only a few years apart. And don't get me wrong, I love the Dragons movies, but I won't lie, Astrid and Hiccup at first was one of the most forced things about that first movie, which is one of the many reasons I respect the original Kung Fu Panda trilogy. They never took the obvious route with this. The movie sat you down and said, don't be an idiot, you know exactly how that'd go, so let's just save everyone the time and not do that. And while I'd love to ramble about that, two reasons I won't. One, it's a movie, and this is still supposed to be a cartoon show, a show about cartoons specifically, you know, TV shows. And two, kind of feels weird to praise the lack of doing something. Oh, you never achieved your dreams, sonny boy? No worries, your dreams were horrible anyway. See what I mean? Feels weird to praise that. So let's steer the conversation away from film and back to cartoons and such. That is what the show is about, I am led to believe. Then what about cartoons? How do they tend to handle romance? You know, when they have it. Well, there's two characters and they fall in love. Thanks for watching this riveting episode. No, I can't fall out of the chair. Well, there's a little more than that. Way too much variety to go over in a timely manner. Oftentimes, cartoons with a singular main lead will set up a crush for them. Like Timmy from Fairly Odd Parents has Trixie, Mordecai from Regular Show has Margaret, etc. And keep in mind, a crush is very rarely the same thing as a love interest. The character who ultimately reciprocates at the end and ends up with the subject. Call up your local fan of Invincible and say they've got a missing child, because I'm calling an Amber Alert. There are two people who are gonna get that joke, and I am one of them. For instance, in Danny Phantom, Danny spends a lot of time fawning over Paulina, but Sam ends up as his intended love interest. Assuming they aren't siblings and things are kept hetero, the male and female leads of a show almost always end up together. That kind of thing seems to be changing a lot in recent years, but I don't have the authority to declare that a hard rule. What did you expect? I'm not a notary. So if we're talking about romance in cartoons, where to start? This isn't like my reboots episode where I list some good or bad ones. There's only so many times I can point at a screen and say, this works. Especially when it comes to romance writing, which is way more subjective and dependent on taste. And speaking of taste, there's another big part of fandom that has a lot to deal with personal preferences and tastes. And stop, I have violated the law. I am not talking about shipping culture on this show. I made this program to make cartoon fandom look rational, inviting, but I have low opinions of certain parts of fandom, and that is a part that should absolutely not be encouraged. I am allowed to hate my own people. So I guess I'll just talk about certain tropes and occurrences with this kind of thing in cartoons. You know, the unusual stuff, but not unusual as in creepy, unusual as in stuff I want to talk about because this is my show, shut up. First up, there's relationship drama. You know, characters break up between seasons or do crummy stuff, force a breakup, you know the drill. It's trite, but it's what a lot of writers think will keep people invested. Whether or not it does is a case-by-case thing. The less time spent talking about animated characters fumbling the bag, the better. You'll find that most people won't watch a show if it changes too much. Do so much as add a new main character, and you'll have people going, this isn't my insert show here. So if you have characters whose love story tends to be a bit too rocky or involved or stop and start, you can have people leave just because it means a lot of change from what they fell in love with. The show, not their spouse. This is why most shows, cartoons or otherwise, tend to go with a will they won't they dynamic for main romance. You know, set that bike up and it'll ride for ages. Futurama did it so hard, it legitimately took the show ending for a decade for finally to end up together. But main couples are one thing, and they're a thing that can be quite maddening to sit through when handled poorly. What about the opposite of a main couple in a cartoon? A street brawl? No, a side couple, the secondary romance, because there's some thought that goes into that which I'm not sure a lot of people notice. You see, sometimes two side characters, or main but not really the main characters, hook up, and that makes a side couple. Fans of that 70s show, think of Kelso and Jackie. Eric and Donna would be the main couple in that case. Kelso and Jackie are the side couple. I know I'm straying from cartoons again. Don't remind me. And I've come to find that generally speaking, a side couple can be as important as a main couple in some cases, and in any case, they serve a very important purpose. Take, for instance, Jake and Lady Rainicorn in Adventure Time. Jake has a girlfriend at the start of the series, 4 or 5 seasons of the show, they have kids that stick around for the rest of the show. Jake, being a dad, informs several future episodes. Jake and Lady Rainicorn stay together for the length of the show. It's a nice, wholesome little lightning rod, giving the audience some sweet content for a chunk of the show. Sounds unimportant, right? Oh, a little bit. But do me a favor, compare Jake's relationship with Lady Rainicorn to Finn's love life. I won't waste your time explaining all the ways Finn fumbled, let's just call it a cluster of something wet. But Finn's struggles are a source of contention amongst fans, while I don't know anyone who complains about Jake and his family. Adventure Time juxtaposes Finn's tumultuous and dramatic love life with a comparative lack of drama regarding Jake. Remember what I said about how shows, keep their audience because of consistency? No shakeups, no big drama, no status quo shifts. Well, you can have big drama and keep a large audience, but only if you create that consistency somewhere else. In this case, you get big relationship drama and status quo shifts, but still have a satisfying relationship to watch unfold. Just not the main one. Another instance of that would be Regular Show. These guys actually did something interesting with Mordecai. They gave him what he wanted, with Margaret. Then they broke up because of circumstances. Mordecai took the breakup hard, but rebounded with another love interest, fumbled that in legendary fashion, then got to spend the last season or 2 of the show figuring himself out. Sorry, can we take a second to dwell on how Mordecai screwed up? Dude went through like 8 misunderstandings with CJ, gets to a relatively stable place, then decides, hey, I know it's right in the middle of my good friend's wedding, but why don't I hog the spotlight and pontificate aloud about my own drama and put my girlfriend, who's only just gotten out of a rough patch, completely on the spot in a huge crowd. We spent 2 whole seasons on this drama at this point just to watch Mordecai make the worst possible decision short of starting a lead tasting business. But what about the other relationships in the show? Well, there's Rigby and Eileen, which make a really compelling counterpoint to Mordecai and whichever girlfriend you prefer him with. CJ, Margaret, Seeret. Gonna go with that because I can shorten it to just Cret. Mordecai and Cret. Mordecret. I'm gonna stop now. There's a rather large contingent of Regular Show fans who despise some of the middle seasons of the show because they focused so much on Mordecai's relationship drama. It was drawn out, it was repetitive, it was full of misunderstandings, which is what everyone likes, right? And generally ended in failure, leaving you wondering what the point of it all was. Well, compare that to Rigby and Eileen, getting together entirely in the background. No ceremony, no episode dedicated to it, just totally under the radar. Mordecai did his business out in the open, but Rigby is a courteous character who keeps off of your screen when he doesn't matter. I swear this is like the second time I've gone on to defend Rigby and I don't know. Or hey, what about Muscle Man and Starla? The two who were practically made for each other since Starla's first appearance and whose wedding Mordecai was at when he fumbled harder than a sportsman whose name I will look up later, I guess. I did not look them up later. Even High Five Ghost has this thing with Celia on the side, vestigial as it is, noticing a pattern, again, juxtaposing a whole brickload of drama with a lack of it everywhere else. Obstructive as Mordecai's drama was, I do appreciate that it's there. The show is making a deliberate statement with it about how relationships are never one and done, and you actually have to work on yourself and find someone compatible before you can make it work. And even that's a continuous process. Plus, it doesn't feel as unbearable knowing that there's a mild source of wholesome content around the corner. This is why some shows might use a side couple to create consistency, or vice versa, make drama where there's otherwise none. Now we come to the part of the episode where I speak derisively. Love triangles. That is all. It's the easiest way to waste the time of the audience, and even good shows do this. I'm a guy who's supportive of 99% of Ninjago as a franchise. Their attempt at a love triangle is the 1%. Incidentally, could I digress for a moment and talk about Ninjago specifically? Because this is the part of the script where I ask for opinions from the audience. That's right, I'm Dora Exploring this. Do Jay and Nia from Ninjago count as the side couple or the main couple? I'm specifically talking about everything before Dragons Rising, the new show. And I'm asking because the two halves of my brain are spitting 2 different answers at me, and both of them start with obviously and end with you idiot. Obviously, they're the main couple, you idiot, because Nia is the main female lead of the show, and basically every other romance in the show is either limited or unimportant. Zane and Pixel would be the side couple, thus Jay and Nia the main one. And on the other hand, obviously they're the side couple, you idiot, because while Nia is the main female lead at this point in the series, she is not paired up with the main male lead. Jay is part of the ensemble, but I wouldn't call him the main character unless I'm watching the best season, Skybound, where he's supposed to be the main character, thus side couple status by technicality. I have no idea where I was going with this debate. I'll open it up entirely to other people. I don't like to debate. I get shy. Ignore that I'm on a camera. I'm a shy little boy. Please take that out of context, somebody. You know what? I'd love to dive into the amazing world of Gumball, but this is long enough as it is. I think I'll save that for a later episode. Is that fair? I wouldn't know. I'm a swindler, born and raised in Grifter County. By this point, I've talked about why romance is such a common device used by cartoons, the purpose of the side couple, will they won't they dynamics, all this stuff, but I don't think I've talked about the main thing. Why does anyone even care? I ask that a lot, don't I? Why do we care about this? Why are we obsessed with this? Why bother paying attention? I don't know if I can put this any other way, but I like to care about stuff. Doesn't mean I like everything. I like to have something I can obsess over. Now for me, that's cartoons, and evidently for a lot of people, that's romance. Yeah, not everyone has it, sometimes by choice, sometimes not. Not everyone wants it, but the people that do want it care about it. That doesn't mean everyone wants to fall in love or something dumb like that, but you can see why people get attached to fictional romances, right? It's reassuring to see something sweet playing out in the middle of what could be otherwise a boring, bleak, or somber show. A show, mind you, which is often playing in a boring, bleak, or somber world. Sometimes it's just escapism. Sometimes a person's just a hopeless romantic. Sometimes it fills a wholesome void a person would otherwise have. Heck, people care so much about fictional relationships that they're willing to argue about them online with vigor not seen outside of elections. Forget that, they care enough about them to get angry when those stories aren't to their liking. Sometimes it's not the best. The more emotionally immature people out there and those that lack media literacy can get the wrong idea about real-world relationships from TV or pull the wrong messages out of stories. Plus, the number of people who've sent death threats to writers and directors because their preferred couple didn't work out is staggeringly non-zero. That's why I stressed before, if you're gonna make me sit through a soppy love story just to watch my favorite show, at least make it a good one. Maybe it's just a cultural thing, maybe it's a bunch of stories written by sad people, maybe it's just something we have to tolerate. You don't have to love it, but someone does. Or at least I think. Did that make sense? Otherwise, this episode doesn't have a thesis statement. I don't know what it would be if not that. This has been Cartoon Gateway, and I'm the love of my life, your host, David Hollander. Tune in next time, where we won't answer your burning questions, like, what is more inevitable, Thanos or dementia?
Funding for Simsbury Community Television is provided in part by contributions from viewers like you. Thank you.